How's everybody today?
Good. Great.
All right. I have a message from the Lord.
Yeah.
And what he wanted me to talk about was, are you speaking blessings or curses? All right. And the verses that I was going to go to is found in the book of James. Very familiar verses, I'm sure, to a lot of people. And it says, but the tongue can no man tame. It's an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. We use it to bless God and curse man, who's made after the image of God. Out of the same mouth proceeds both blessings and curses. Shouldn't be this way. Okay? Does a fountain send forth... Thanks, dear. Does a fountain send forth bitter and sweet water out of the same opening? Can a fig tree produce olive berries? Or how about a vine? Can it produce figs? So also it says that a fountain cannot both yield salt water and fresh. And so, this whole mouth thing is, there's a lot of opportunity for rabbit trails, but I want to try to focus just on blessings and curses because it's so important and it has the ability to affect our lives, okay? What we say literally sets forth like a dynamic in the spirit to bring things to cause to pass. And we don't realize that one thing I want to help people really understand that God did for me is we speak curses over ourselves and we don't even realize it. And it's so important. And kind of how when I discovered that, I started studying the mouth and got on the path and was reading the Bible, and we know it says that life and death, the power of life and death come out from the tongue or from the mouth. Okay, and so our words have a lot of power. Think about it. God created the heavens and the earth. It said He spoke and said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And then He created us after His own image. So that creative power from speech, we received a part of that. All right? Obviously we can't speak and create like God did, but since we're created in His image, that aspect of His creation in us, we have power with our speech to bless and to curse. And so, there's a prayer that Dave did. It's in the Psalms. It says, and he was asking the Lord, put a watch over the door of my mouth. All right, because the mouth is a door. There's good things and bad things, going in and going out, right? All right, and so the mouth is a door, the Bible tells us. And so I'm like, all right, so I started praying, Lord, I'm just asking you to put a watch over the door of my mouth. I figured this is a good prayer for me today. Well, I thought that I would do better with the things that I was saying, and what happened is God honored that prayer and He started showing me all the wrong stuff that I was saying. And I was saying a lot more wrong stuff than I thought. And what in the process of time with that kind of a heart, the Lord started showing me I was literally cursing me. I was speaking curses over my wife. And, a lot of this revelation came in the process of time, and we don't really realize that the power to bless and to curse impacts each and every one of us. It impacts our children. It impacts their children. And so, this was just something that I wanted to talk about because it's not something we're usually thinking about. And it has the potential to really bless us, all right, when we get a hold of it. And once we have that knowledge, what will happen is you'll be saying stuff, and all of a sudden you'll get these red flags in your spirit. And the Lord will start showing you the things that you're saying that are wrong. All right, and when I was first on the path, I started understanding and thinking about this stuff, and my ears were perked up, and I worked at Roadway, and we had the union steward, and I did not like this guy. They used to give me a hard time. They used to tell me to slow down. I'm working too hard. I'm taking food out of somebody's mouth. That's what they used to tell me. Okay. Well, the union steward, he worked so slow. The big joke was, we need to hire a nurse on staff to take his pulse to see if he's still with us. You know what I'm saying? And so, but you know what he used to say all the time? He used to say, well, I'll be damned. Well, I'll be damned. And then one day the Lord was prompting me, you need to go say something to him. And you know what? He was, think about it, because Satan gets a hold of our mouth and we don't realize it. This guy was speaking a curse over himself. He was saying that I will be damned. And Satan wants us to proclaim curses over ourselves. And so I was thinking, all right, I got to say something to him. So I told him, I says, and the next time he was with me and he says, well, I'll be damned. I says, you should be careful with what you're saying. Do you realize that you are speaking a curse over yourself? And he had this funny look on his face, and then he was like, oh, you know what I mean, and said something or whatever, and we went back to our jobs. Well, I ran into him about 2 hours later. We used to have to sign this manifest in the front of the where the trailer was, and we both ended up in the same place. And he looks at me, he says, well, I'll be blessed. and it's funny because he was thinking about it, you know what I mean? I was obedient to the Lord, and I told him, you know what I mean? But this is an example of how the devil wants us to do self-pronouncing curses over our life. All right? And, you know, like early on in our marriage, Nan and I used to drive separate to church. Okay, well, it was about 40 minutes away, you know. She'd be running behind schedule, and I would be frustrated. And I remember one time I was so frustrated, I might have shared this before, but I was mad, and I was just so mad. I says, you know, it doesn't matter what you can do, you can't make it to church on time. I go out the door, and I'm in my vehicle, and I'm driving away, and it was like the Lord was tapping me on my shoulder, and it was like, what did you just say to her? And I was pronouncing a curse over her, and I didn't realize it. I was saying it doesn't matter what you do, you can't make it to church on time. Okay?
Not much has changed.
And well, I mean, and so it was such a precious thing because the Lord was showing me the words of my own mouth. Okay, when we look at the spies that went to Canaan, okay, to spy out the land, you know what they came back and said? We can't conquer the land. Okay, now Joshua and Caleb said, let's go in. When God's with us, we can do it. But everybody said, stone these guys with stones. Okay, let's make us a captain and we'll go back to Egypt. And God was mad. And you know what God said? It's very important what God told them. He said, and I believe he says it to all of us with what we say. He said, as you have spoken in my ears, so shall I do unto you. All right? And so, you know, it says that we will eat the fruit of our words. All right? We need to speak the blessing and not the curse. And so, you know, we need to think of the things that we're saying. You know, I think I have one more example for myself. And so, you know, and another aspect that's overlooked too is wherever God's authority is in the earth, there's more power for the words that are spoken. Okay, now think about it. It says in Romans, it's in Romans 13, it says, let every soul be subject to the higher powers, for there's no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained by God. Well, that word powers is exousia, and it means authority. So, all authority in heaven and earth is God's. And anywhere, think about it, anywhere that God delegates his authority, okay, we're supposed to submit to. All right, and so where does God delegate his authority? Okay, well, he delegates his authority into government. When it says, let every soul be subject to the higher powers, the higher authority, when we are obedient to the laws of the land, we're being obedient to God. Because all authority, all authority that's out there, all it does really is it represents God's authority. And anywhere we submit to authority, we're submitting to God as unto the Lord. And so we need to understand, it's important to understand where God's authority exists in the earth so that we can be obedient, all right? And of course that authority is misrepresented. You know, God says governments are evil, but we should still submit to them as unto the Lord as long as they're not telling us to break his commandments, all right? God delegates his authority into the man. It says the head of every woman is the man. The head of Christ is God. Children, obey your parents as unto the Lord. And so my reason to bring this up is wherever God's delegated his authority is, God has given me authority in my household, so the words that I speak over my wife have more power to bring the curse or the blessing to come to pass. All right? And so if we look in the Bible, the blessing of the Father was just so coveted, it was so important. when we look at Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, you know what I mean? The blessing went to the firstborn, but Jacob means deceitful. He put hair on his arms and he did all this stuff. He conspired with his mom, and they fooled him, and he received the blessing. And you kind of think, well, why couldn't he just take it back? Well, we can't take back our words. If I tell somebody, hey, you're a real bonehead, can I take that back? That's out there, man. It ain't coming back. Okay, and so so the blessing of the father over the child. My dad used to speak curses over me. He said, he would say like, well, you'll never be able to do that. Okay, I would be like, don't say that. Take that back. He used to tell him, and then I started explaining to him, and he have a funny look on his face. Okay, Nan and I have ministered to many, many people. Just recently, somebody, and a big root of their problem is their father would tell them, you're an a-hole, you'll never amount to anything. And this father spoke this over this person we were ministering to over and over. These are powerful curses, okay? And people don't realize the impact that they have, that we need to speak life, not death, over our children, wives have authority over their children. Husbands over their wives. And so anywhere God's authority exists, anywhere that we're submitting to authority, we need to be obedient to. I mean, that's a whole topic in itself. Like wherever I'm living, I'm in Perico Apartments. I need to submit to those rules, okay? But we all want to break them here and there, It says no diving at the pool, and I dive in the pool. Okay, so, where are you going to draw the line? I mean, I really shouldn't do that. Because, I'm submitting to those authorities that when I come in and live there, I'm going to agree to abide by the rules, you know what I mean, as unto the Lord. And we want to try to push that off to the side and do things our own way sometime, okay? And so, when we look at the blessing of the Father, I mean, when you look at Noah, okay, Noah, when he got off the boat, one of the first things he did is he became a husbandman, which is a farmer, and he planted a vineyard and made some wine, and he got drunk. Okay? And then Ham went in there, Dad's, butt naked in the tent, come check it out, you know what I mean? And is that pretty, I guess that's a little graphic for church, huh? Anyways, he had no clothes on, and sorry, it's like, oh my gosh, and so he's, anyways, Ham goes and tells everybody. Well, the Bible says love covers a multitude of sins, okay, and so Noah gets up and it says that he knew what had been done, all right, and you know what he did? He started speaking blesses and curses. He said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be. Blessed be the Lord God of Shem." Okay? Canaan will be his servant. God will enlarge the tents of Japheth, and he will dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan will be his servant. And so when you look at the blessing and the curses that Noah spoke, and then you look at, the Bible gives us all these genealogies, and you can see what happened. Canaan, the land of Canaan, where all the ites were, the Hittites and the Jebusites, and you know what I mean? They were conquered by the descendants of Shem, And so, when you look at, you can just look and see the blessing of the Father. Joseph brought Ephraim and Manasseh to Jacob, Jacob, think of the authority Jacob had in the earth. Think about it. Okay, his name was changed to Israel. All right, he was 130 when he came into Egypt, when the famine had started, okay? And think of the authority. I mean, I believe there's such a thing as spiritual authority too. And so Joseph brings Jacob before Pharaoh. What does Jacob do? Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And he says, "How old are you?" He's like, I forget how he says it, the fourscore or whatever, but it was 130. He was 130 years old. I have not yet attained the years of my fathers. Okay? And so that blessing on Pharaoh, when you look at what happened, he got everybody's cattle. He got everybody's land. He was the biggest landholder on the planet because everybody gave up their lands for food. Everybody gave up their cattle for food. And when you think about it, that blessing of Jacob, think of how blessed he was after Jacob blessed him. He became probably one of the wealthiest men on earth because how God had set it up, or all the food had been stored up, 7 years worth of food. Okay, and so everybody surrendered everything to him, all their lands, all their properties, everything, man, all their cattle, and so the blessed. Think of how powerful the blessing of Jacob was. All right, and he spoke blessings and curses over the sons. If you look at what he said, so all this really plays a big impact, and so we need to understand that we need to speak the blessing and not the curse. All right. Like when I worked at Roadway, it used to get cold, and I'd be driving, and I'd go into the break room at night, and I'd take a half-hour nap, and my hands would get cold, and I remember I was getting up from my 30-minute nap, and my middle finger would be white. There was no circulation in it. It would feel numb. I mean, they would be numb when I went down there because my hands were cold. But then I'd take a half hour, I'd doze off for a half hour, and I'd get up, and there'd be no blood in my middle finger. And I'd be like, the blood's not running down my finger. And I would spin my arms around in a circle, and the blood would go back to my finger. All right. Well, that started happening, and then the next year came, and it was worse. And I remember saying, the blood won't run down into my finger, and it's getting worse. And then the next year, it was on this hand. And I was thinking, wasn't it, was it this hand? Was it that hand? And so the words out of my mouth were, is the blood won't run down my fingers, and it's getting worse. And I didn't realize it, but I was speaking a curse over myself. Okay? Because we don't really realize how this works, you know what I'm saying? And so then I was like going to lose my insurance, and I'm like, I should go to a doctor and get this checked out before I lose my insurance. What if the blood doesn't go back down my finger? Am I going to have to get it chopped off? And so I went to the doctor, and they diagnosed it. You know what they said? They said I had Raynaud. It's incurable. That's what the doctor told me. And then I was reading this book by Derek Prince about blessings and curses. All right, and the Lord showed me, you are cursing your hands. Think about what you've been saying over yourself all of this time. And it was like this light bulb went on. And when it says Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law being made a curse for us, for it's written, cursed is he that hangs upon a tree, we have the authority and the power to break curses in the name of Jesus. All right? And so, and so I, you know what I did? I got this like burst of revelation. I says, I renounce all of the curse words that I've spoken over my hands concerning the blood running down to my fingers. I break the power of those words. I declare my hands are healed in the name of Jesus. And it was like I just knew it was a done deal. And you know what? The weather was getting cold, and I had taken these gloves. Even though I wouldn't normally wear gloves this time of year, I was wearing gloves because I didn't want my hands to get cold, because that kind of triggered it. And I thought, and you know what? Faith always is followed up by action. And I took the gloves off because I didn't need them, because I was convinced. I just renounced these curse words over my hands, and I'm healed in the name of Jesus. And it was just like this aha moment. I took the gloves off. I didn't need them anymore, and I got on my high-low. Whoa! My hands were freezing, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I wasn't worried about it because my hands are healed. And you know what? They were. All right? And so, some of the things that we say, you know what I mean? When we had our first coffee shop, we struggled financially, and I used to speak negative stuff over the business and myself. Part of it is sometimes we're saying things. You can say, I don't feel good today, but you don't want to say, there's ways that we can say it. It doesn't matter what we do, we can't make ends meet. That's a curse. You could say, I'm having a hard time today, or I don't feel good today. You know what I mean? But if you say, it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter what I do or what I take, these headaches just won't go away. If you say, I just can't ever get a good night's sleep. You know what I'm saying? And we say these things, you know what I mean? And once you get a hold of this, you'll realize there's a lot of things that you're saying that are actually word curses that you're speaking over yourself. So when you ask the Lord, Lord, can you put a watch over the door of my mouth like I did? Then when you start doing it, it's like the Spirit will start to show you things that you're saying over your wife, or things that you might say over your children, things that you're speaking over yourself. I remember, we struggled so much in the coffee shop. It was like, it didn't matter what we did, man. We struggled, you know what I mean? And I remember fasting, and I fasted a couple days, and I was praying. It's like, I need some answers. And you know what the Lord told me? He gave me a verse. He says, call those things that are not as though they are. All right? Speak life, not death. And it's like, it was a real revelation for me, you know what I mean? And I was doing that a lot, and I still catch myself, you know what I mean, saying, but you know what, I've really gotten a hold of it, and now when I think about it, I speak so much life and health over myself. I mean, a lot of the things I say is, I feel like $1,000,000 every day. I don't ever get sick. My eyes are getting better. They are. I go to the eye doctor, and my prescription's going the opposite way. Most people, when they get older, it goes the other way. God's healing my eyes. And you know what I mean? It's like, I sleep like a baby. I go to bed at 10 o'clock, I sleep like a baby every night. All right? You know what? I sleep like a baby. But I'm declaring that over my life. And so when you start to get, you know what I mean? When you start to get a hold of some of this, and you can change some of the things that you're saying, you know what I mean? It really impacts us, you know what I mean? Don't ever say I'm afraid. Okay? Because don't say you're afraid of anything. Because fear is sin. I'm back. And so, fear is a sin, and when we say I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that, what happens is the devil's going to come and try to help us. You know what I mean? And he wants to get that into us, that fear of whatever it is. And let me tell you what, once you have a fear of something, okay, that's a hook that the devil has gotten into you, and if you give the devil an inch, he will be your ruler. All right? And he always tries to expand his territory, and so we need to tear down those things. We had a guy that was living with us, and Nan and I took him off. He was living in his car. He's living, and we didn't know at first he was claustrophobic. It was a fear of enclosed places, and so we let him move in with us, and he's sleeping in the living room. I'm like, well, we got the bedroom, we got it set up. Well, it was too enclosed of a place. Okay, he was afraid. This was one of his fears. Claustrophobia is a fear. Okay, and so I'm like, okay, he's sleeping in the living room. Okay, I wasn't really thinking too much about. But he lost his job because part of his job was in cubicles. Okay, and then it advanced to the point where he couldn't work there anymore because of his claustrophobia, because of the fear of enclosed places. All right, and so I tried to get him a job, and he went and he checked it out, and there was a door open, and he's thinking, I think I'm going to be okay because this door is open. But you know what? He tried to do it, and he couldn't do it. Ended up running out the door. All right. Well, Nan and I prayed with him. Lord, forgive me for this fear. I confess it as a sin. We led him in prayer. We did. We spent some time ministering to him and stuff. Bye now. It's like he had no more problem with the fear. You know what I mean? It was gone. And whatever stronghold you eliminate through prayer and asking God to forgive you, name it specifically, declare that it has no more power, and leave your life. But the devil's can tell you, oh no, it's still there. He's going to try to regain that lost ground. You know what I mean? But we got to stand in faith. You know what I mean? To save it. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes we'll get set free from something, and it'll come back. I've told stories about, I like quit smoking weed, and then, you know what I mean? It's like weeds grow back, right? And so sometimes we gotta get right back, and we gotta go again and again sometimes. But you know what I mean? We need to tear down those areas. We need to quit speaking curses over ourselves and speak the blessing, and our lives are going to be better. The lives of our children are going to be better. Speak life over them. Ask God, Lord, I am just asking you to put a watch over the door of my mouth today. And God will show you when, over the process of time, He'll show you, like, you'll just get a check when you say something, and you'll realize what you just said. Because we need God's wisdom with this kind of stuff, We don't really realize that we're doing it. And And so that's what I wanted to share. I wanted to share speaking the blessing, ask God for revelation over the things that we're saying that don't line up with His Word. We want to speak blessings over our employees, in our household, over our wives. We just over ourselves, because we speak the curse over ourselves and we don't even realize it. All right, and so that's what I wanted to share. And we're gonna do communion. And communion started out as a meal. The first supper was a meal. It's funny, if you look in 1 Corinthians, Paul was giving them correction because they were coming together for a meal, but some had more money than other people. And he's like, you guys come together for the Lord's Supper, and one of you is feasting and another one is going without. This guy's drunk. He says, don't you have houses to eat in? And so he was giving them correction about the Lord's Supper. He says, this is something that we need to do in reverence. We need to do it. We want to remember Jesus' sacrifice. All right? And so let's think about that. When we partake of the bread, Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, he took the bread and he broke it. And he said, this bread represents my body that's going to be broken. So let's remember the sacrifice that Jesus made when we partake of the bread. It says, after the same manner he took the cup. He says, this cup, this wine is the New Testament in my blood, which is going to be shed for the remission of sins. Okay, without blood, there's no forgiveness of sins. All right, and so you need to believe Jesus was the Son of God, that God raised him from the dead to receive forgiveness of sins. There has to be a sacrifice. That's why they killed all the animals in the Old Testament. It was a temporary system. God's not an animal hater, but the shed blood of the animal, okay, atoned temporarily for the sin, okay, because sin brings death. The death was transferred to the animal. Imagine doing something wrong and having to go get a kid out of the flock to sacrifice it for your sin. And so when you think about the cost, sin brings death. Jesus came that we might have life, and life more abundantly. And so we need to remember that it's the shed blood that gives us forgiveness of sins. Okay, and so let's remember His sacrifice as we partake of the cup. Father, I just thank you for this message, Lord. I pray that we would just all get a revelation from you. I pray that we would all speak life, speak blessings out of our mouth instead of curses. Father, I pray that in this coming week, you would help each and every one of us shine that light on our speech, Lord, in this coming week. Show us the ways that we're speaking curses over ourselves. Let's break the power of those words. Let us speak blessings and life over our loved ones, over our employees, over our spouses, Father. I just thank you for this message, Lord God, and I just pray that you would bless all of us with wisdom and understanding concerning the things that we say in the coming week. For I pray these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.